Okay, and we're live. Okay, my friends and gems, here we are on another episode of Love and Money Secrets TV. I'm Dame Lillian Walker, and here we have the Mitochondriac Manifesto by R.D. Lee. And we are on chapter 5, and we left off last time on page 48. So we're going to pick up right up on page 48. I'm going to recap the 155, in other words, 155-pound person needs to make 170 pounds of ATP per day. And that's at rest, not even somebody who's running. When you exercise, you need to make closer to 185. Wow, that's a lot, isn't it?
That's a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're only 155 pounds and you have to make 185 pounds of ATP per day, think about that for a moment. You actually need to make more ATP each day than you weigh. But here's the crazy part. Food is only supposed to provide a third of the electrons to make that ATP, while two-thirds of those electrons, they're meant to come from sunlight, ozone, and grounding. So that means we need to get out in the sun. I am guilty of not doing that today. I try to get out every day, but I did not get out. One thing kept me in the other, and before I knew it, it's now sunset. So, unfortunately, most of us don't get anywhere near the volume of electrons from traditional sources living the way we do. I'm going to pause here because I failed to get sun this morning, even though I was up early. I did not get out in the sun, even though I intended to. And so I still have not gone outside all day. So, after I'm done with this broadcast, I'm going to go downstairs barefoot, put my feet on the grass, touch one of either the palm, probably I like the palm trees better than the other trees that I have outside my door, and I'll just get grounded with my hands and feet because I'm on the grass and my hands are on the tree. And as you may
Yeah.
be aware, you're going to offload any excess positive or negative charge, which will automatically ground you. You'll sleep better, you'll feel better, and your body will get help with the ATP that it needs for that day. And it's free.
Yeah.
Doesn't even take, it's not like you have to do it for 30 minutes, an hour. No, it instantly happens as soon as you do that. So 5-10 minutes is fine. So it says, and that, believe it or not, is a primary cause of energy shortages that turn into modern diseases,
Oh,
mostly due to lack of sun, pure water, and direct earth contact. I'm going to read that again because I think it's so important for people to hear. That is a primary cause of energy shortages that turn into modern diseases, mostly due to three things: lack of sun, pure water, and direct earth contact. Now, as I sit here talking to you, Carol, and as we are reading this book, I don't remember ever hearing in any of my education and all of my schooling, traditional schooling in the
yeah.
university setting. Outside, that's different, because I've got a lot of different esoteric modalities and certifications that I've gotten, and they definitely talk about how important it is to ground. But in traditional schooling, you know,
Not at all. No.
yeah, they don't tell you that it's important. Water, yes. Grounding, no, not necessarily. And to put your feet on the earth, no. I mean, we grew up, yeah, we had recess in the morning, and then you have lunchtime and you go out again at lunchtime, and then in the early afternoon, you might have a little break. But they didn't really talk about you getting out in the sun, or even less so for you to be grounded where your feet and hands were actually touching the earth, that was significant. Now, that being said, maybe when you were in school, Carol, because you were in school a little bit, just a little bit, wee bit earlier than me. Did they ever talk about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. No, they never talked about it in school, but I lived in the country and I went barefoot all the time,
Yeah,
playing outside all the time. A lot of us kids did.
I
So,
bet, I bet. So one thing I have an advantage that I have lived in a few islands. And one of the things that I've noticed is that people that live on islands, like here in the States, it's like, okay, we have on an island, it's warm and balmy all year round.
Yeah.
Whereas in California, we have hot and cold. We have
Yeah.
hot during the summer, basically the spring, the summer, the fall, it's warm and it's hot. And then you have winter, which we have for about 3, maybe 4 months. And then the rest of the time it's warm, right? Well, I got to tell you that I don't ever remember them saying, "Hey, get out in the water, get it." Actually, when people would catch a cold or would get the flu or anything like that, you stay in, get bundled up, wear a sweater. You don't want to catch a cold. Well, in the islands, like I lived in Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and they would tell people it's like, oh, if you have the sniffles, if you have a cough, if you're under the weather in any way, shape, or form, they would tell people go to the beach.
Yeah.
Go to the
Oh,
beach,
yeah.
swim in the water, the iodine from the water, all the minerals from the water, the electrolytes, all that natural element, they inherently know, that culture knows that that's beneficial, and you're going to clear whatever it is that you have even faster as you get outside in the sun, in the ocean, and apparently also like it works also in streams and rivers and in lakes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And
I,
so
I can relate to that. Uh-huh.
And so they don't have that thing. It's like, oh, you have the flu or you have a cold. We got to bundle you up. It's already 95 degrees outside. They're not going to bundle you up, right?
I know. It's not
Definitely
good.
not going to bundle you up. But they want you out in the sun, and not for a long time, but they do push you out to get out into the sun, which kind of seemed, when I got to Puerto Rico, I was 11. So that was kind of first of all, that you'd be so close to the beach all the time, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There was a novel thought that people literally, and then you would see some of the older men. I can't say that I saw kids doing this or women, but I would see men. They would, float on their backs, and they literally were sleeping on the water
Oh, yeah.
face
Yeah.
up. And I'm like,
Uh,
is he really sleeping or is he acting like he's sleeping? I don't know. I just know that they looked like they were
they
sleeping.
look like they were. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just relaxing on this. And so there's something to be said about getting out in nature. And I think that in a lot of islands, like when I stayed in Halbach Island in Mexico for a few weeks, they have that same belief. So islands around the world, they do that. In Italy, in Sicily is the largest Mediterranean island, and they have the same thing. It's like if you even get so much as a runny nose, it's like run to the beach, run to the
Oh,
beach,
right.
splash in the water. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have a
Yeah.
bathing suit, doesn't matter. Head to toe, you'll dry yourself off when you come home, shower, and then you can, jump into other clothes. But they have kids and adults get out into the beach. So there's something to be said about that.
Definitely.
So overview of cellular energy production, cellular respiration. So for your cells to breathe, the body employs 3 major multi-step processes to make energy, in addition to several intermediate sideline processes. The whole process of energy production, called cellular respiration, take chemical fuels such as glucose and fat and combines them with oxygen and burns them to make ATP, metabolic water, and carbon dioxide. Meshing like the gears of a watch, the major metabolic pathways involved in making energy include glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. The pyruvate pathway is one of the main gears in the middle that connects glycolysis to the Krebs cycle, also known as the TCA cycle, citric acid cycle, and beta oxidation, also known as fatty acid oxidation, is one of the sideline processes that breaks off carbon groups off of long chain fats
Oh,
to make acetyl-CoA, which is, he's trying to say acetylcholine, to feed the Krebs cycle. So warning, this section is advanced. It's intended to help biologists and health professionals understand how energy is made in the body and why and where the breakdowns occur. Health consumers reading for their own education can skip safely to the next 5 pages and not miss anything you need to know. Indeed, cellular respiration is so ridiculously complex, yet powerful and highly efficient. You'd think that Germans had over-engineered the entire process like a fancy car. Funny thing is, cars are actually modeled after human beings' bodies. And so I'm going to share with you the graphics that they show here. Let me see if I can have them show up for you.
That works there.
There you go. So
Yeah.
this is the glycolysis cycle over here that this was showing. And this is showing you cellular respiration. It's just showing how the cell is able to breathe. Okay.
Yeah.
This is how the ATP is formed. So we will go ahead and we'll read, let's see, it talks here about the 5 pages. Maybe we'll do 2 pages because this is more heady information. And I will try to simplify it so that you guys can kind of get the gist of this. I have not read this before, so we'll see how heady it gets. Glycolysis. This happens on the inside of the cell called cytosol, not in the mitochondria. So they're just trying to tell you, inside the cell, you have a tiny little organism. Let's say if the cell were the size of my hand, you would have mitochondria the size of my nail. You would have quite a few hundred inside each cell. And that's
Right.
where the ATP is produced. And it says here, the main purpose of glycolysis is to make pyruvate, to feed the Krebs cycle and a small amount of ATP. Remember how I kind of playfully called ATP all the power, which is,
Yes, I remember.
it's just a way of remembering that that's where all your energy is, because that's adenosine triphosphate, which is kind of like, you can't associate that with anything. So by just saying ATP is all the power, that's good enough for layman's terms.
Yep.
Glucose, so it's going to take glucose, your sugar, that goes into the cycle. ATP are invested as fuel to power the first 3 stages of glycolysis. Has to do with your digestion and your respirations and your insulin levels of the body. And through some 7 odd stages, sugar-based molecules are converted from one to another and they arrive at pyruvate. So it's kind of showing you the chain reaction from one chemical to the other to get to pyruvate, which is the precursor for the Krebs cycle and the investment of 2 units of ATP, of all the power, through this glycolytic process, which yields 4 units of ATP. So you're starting to see how the 1 unit of ATP turns into 4, which for somebody who's, they have the example of 155 pounds, they need 185 pounds of ATP, not 155. So at the end, for a net gain of 2. So in short, glycolysis is a weak way to make energy, but the process almost never malfunctions because our body loves sugar.
Yeah.
So pyruvate pathway, that pyruvate's most important function is to get it, function is that it gets converted into acetyl-CoA, and the chief reactant that drives the ensuing TCA cycle, that is acetyl-CoA, is the chemical compound that, like pedaling a bicycle, propels the 8+ enzymatic steps of the Krebs cycle forward and over again. So it's kind of like the linchpin to get the next 8 steps, like dominoes, to fall into place. The interesting thing about this step is that lactic acid, which is part of the pyruvate pathway, gets made as a byproduct of ATP production in conditions of overexertion, hypoxia, ischemia, lack of blood flow, infection, and heart failure. So think about that. Of course, we know whenever we work out, we ride bicycles, we jump on a trampoline, we're running, we're exerting ourselves like fast walking, you're going to have some lactic acid buildup on the muscles of the body.
Yeah.
That is part of this pathway, pyruvate pathway. Also, when you have heart failure, because your heart is working and your muscles are working hard to get the blood going throughout your body, you have lactic acid buildup there too. It says here in relatable terms, that means lactic acid is the chemical that makes muscles sore when you exercise too hard. True. So it's talking here in this next section, it's got another pretty picture. And if it were in black and white, it would be so boring. It would be much harder to understand too. But if there were brighter colors, it would be even prettier because it kind of looks like something you could hang on a Christmas tree. Just
All right. Yeah.
So tricarboxylic acid, also known as TCA, cycle, citric acid cycle, or Krebs cycle. The main purpose of this TCA is to make input materials for the electron transport chain in the form of NADH and FADH molecules. Specifically, respiratory complexes need hydrogen protons to produce a voltage differential, proton pools of different concentrations. They need electrons to pump those protons from the mitochondria's interior into the intermembrane space. The TCA cycle then makes NADH and FADH, two molecules, through 9 enzymatic steps that you don't need to know about unless you're a pre-med student studying for a biology exam.
All right.
So true. So it's basically talking to you about the chain reaction of like the 9 different steps leading up to actually it making the energy that's going to burst inside your cells so that then you have energy to move forward, to jump or run whenever you feel like you want to jump or run.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't feel like the energy has been pulled out from under you. So then it actually shows you what the electron transport chain, it says also known as oxidative phosphorylation. That sounds like a big mouthful.
Yeah.
But phosphorus, there's receptors inside the cells and outside the cells, and you need to plug in those with phosphorus. And so this is showing you kind of like if you think of a chain link, like if you look at a bike, you know how there's a chain around the bike so that the pedals make the gears turn?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this is, but inside the cell, kind of the same. And that's called the electron transport chain. So this, they call it, this is the main event process of energy production, kind of like the gears, you know how the chain is.
Yeah.
Without you pedaling, right? That chain would not turn those 2 gears that turn the wheels so that your bike can go, right? So this is the main event process of energy production in a multicelled organism from the animal kingdom. We're part of that. Mitochondria have 2 cell membranes to contain a pool of protons between them called the intermembrane space, and the electron transport chain is a set of protein structures that sit on the inner membrane. The ETC uses a flow of electrons from food and other sources via a chemical storage of molecules NADH and FADH2 to pump hydrogen protons from the interior of the mitochondrial matrix into the intermembrane space. So this is just getting into an explanation. If you were to look at, I'm going to use this mouse pad as an example. And if this were the cell, and then of course you have a membrane so that you have like a border. And then inside here, you have all the mitochondria, which are basically, I'm going to use the size of my nail as an example, where you're going to have hundreds of those that are inside there. But it's talking about how the photons and the electrons in the space that's between the outside and the inner membrane walls, there's a little space in between. And as the photons and the protons and the electrons are going back and forth, that causes a friction, which causes an energy exchange. That's all that's trying to say. They make it sound more complicated here.
Yeah, I see.
Because they're making it more technical terms, but that's in a nutshell what's going on here. So, and then as you have high concentrations of, let's say, protons, as opposed to a low concentration of electrons, you know, both being light, and electrons having a negative and a positive charge, and phosphorus being something that's highly flammable. So as soon as you ignite that, then it's going to discharge energy. So it talks about the high concentration of protons in the inner membrane space offers an electrical gradient or voltage differential that drives the rotating head of the ATP synthase, like water turning a hydroelectric turbine. Technically, the electron transport chain only refers to complexes 1 through 4, because complex 5 only deals with protons and it doesn't transport electrons, but it's often included in the ETC for the sake of simplicity. Here are a few noteworthy details about the ETC included for their special significance in energy efficiency and mitophysics in general. Okay, I think we're going to skip these next 2 because this is getting kind of more technical and I don't think anybody's going to benefit that much from that. So I will read the headings of the next few sections because it talks about oxygen accepts the electrons, exciting the electron transport chain. So that's just telling you about a chemical reaction. Free radicals are made of shortages or surpluses at any point in the electron transport chain. So instead of having electrons paired in twos, so that each have, when you have them paired in twos, they're stable. But when you have one electron missing a pair, a partner, then that's called a free radical, because that lowly little free radical is looking to pair up with someone, and it's not happy. It's unstable until it finds another electron to pair up with. And the moment it can find any electron to pair up with, then now it's a pair, then it becomes stable. So free radicals are made by shortages or surpluses. I already read that. Okay, so now we're going to page 52, 53. Now we're going to go to 54. 55. What happens when mitochondria lose their mojo? Okay, so we're going to skip over here to page 55, because what? So I don't have to tell you, if mitochondria are the energy centers of the cells and therefore the energy centers of our entire body, obviously, when the mitochondria lose their mojo, if they don't have energy, if they don't have gas, neither do you. That's when you feel like somebody pulled your battery out and you're like exhausted. Okay. That's an awful feeling. We've all had that at some point in our life. So when mitochondria, I'm on the top of page 55, are inefficient at producing energy, you tend to gain weight or lose weight. You can't generate cells as well. And most important for this discussion, the diseases of aging accelerate in whatever organ or system has the weakest mitochondria from the bad genes and toxic exposures.
Oh, wow.
From both toxic exposures and the weakest genes. In fact, the vast majority of disease and aging is a function of mitochondria's potency and population density. So when your mitochondria fail to produce energy efficiently, first organs and systems go into power conservation mode, which you usually you won't notice that, okay? Then they malfunction because they're trying to preserve energy. Then they shut down. Oh no, because if your digestive system shuts down, or if your reproductive system shuts down, or your respiratory system shuts down, your circulatory system, any system shutting down is a big deal because they're all supposed to be regulated, right?
Yep.
Now you're in real trouble. We call that disease and death. And you can very well, your circulatory system shuts down. Yeah, you don't have blood flowing in your body, you're going to pass, right?
That's
so this decline in mitochondrial productivity through genetic inheritance or toxic environment and or age shortens the time your body is able to maintain energy. So I want to point out something here because they did talk about genetic inheritance. And the longer you study genetics over time, you realize that more things are not genetically predisposed, where it's not because you have a genetic biomarker, but it's really your cells reacting. It's epigenetics. So epigenetics is the study of the cell's interaction with the environment.
Right.
So as you have toxins in the environment, then that affects the cell's expression and the DNA expression. So it's really more epigenetics rather than through genetic inheritance. That's not to say you can't inherit negative traits from your ancestors. You can, but there's quite a few out there that are, it's not quite what you think it is. I'm just going to say that. And you can do your own research on that. So historically, the process of going from a low heteroplasmy rate, strong mitochondria, to a high heteroplasmy rate, weak mitochondria, took 5 to 8 decades for it to deteriorate and fall apart to the point of incompetence. So oftentimes in the body, you may have, actually most people's liver are only operating at about 50% of its capacity, which is kind of low if you think about it. So by the time they start having fatty liver disease, or they're starting to have hepatitis, or they're having liver problems that are actually diagnosed, they're usually down to 35%.
Wow.
Liver function by the time, because usually they don't feel anything at 50%.
Yeah.
They think everything is fine. You might have cirrhosis of the liver, and it's not until you hit about 35% function that then, oh gosh, something is seriously wrong. You go to the doctor and they're like, you only have 35% functionality. You're going to need a liver transplant, or we got to put you on these meds, which is kind of ironic because to put you on meds when you have a liver compromise, now your liver has to filter that, and it only has 35% functionality.
Yeah.
It's got to be a better way. There is a better way. We know of multiple ways that you can take care of all sorts of things in the human body, like the phototherapy process and program that both Carol and I are currently enjoying and have enjoyed for a little while now.
Yeah.
So, but now we're seeing more and more cases of mitochondrial insufficiency developing over the first few decades of life. This is very sad.
That is.
As the schedules of certain things have gone up over the last several years, we see instead of kids being healthy throughout, infancy all the way to their 20s or 30s and not seeing any problems until later in life, we're starting to see that now, even in the first couple decades of life, which should not be, but it is. But it has to do with toxins. So in extreme cases, even when we see mitochondrial collapse happening in the womb before birth, that's sad, as with some birth defects. But whatever age it happens, the process of mitochondrial degradation is equivalent to having the life sucked out of you and decay setting in. So it's death already setting in. So one of the coping mechanisms employed by the mitochondria is this. Cells that can't make enough ATP revert to a much less efficient fallback mechanism of fermentation, also known as glycolysis, which is sugar-based energy production. Energy-starved cells basically resort to consuming sugar to try to sustain themselves, and that manifests as sugar and carb cravings, which contributes to gluten sensitivity and candida overgrowth. So for those of you who are dealing with gluten sensitivity issues or candida overgrowth, you might want to reread page 55, because that's what we just went over. And we're going to wrap it up because we're at the bottom of the hour at 7:35. And I am turning into a pumpkin and getting hungry. And after listening to Dr. Stacy talk about sleep hygiene and how sleep is so important in terms of activating your original master smart cells and so forth, I did not succeed last night in getting to bed by 10. I did not succeed in getting to bed by midnight. So tonight, I do want to succeed in getting to bed at least by midnight. And so today I was thinking, okay, maybe it was overly ambitious to try and be in bed at 10. That's like too many hours that I'm rolling back the hands of time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try by 12 and then few days of that, then 11. And then hopefully by next week, I'll be to 10 o'clock.
Back at 10, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll make it.
The goal.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal.
Okay. And if any of you are curious about that video that I just referenced to that Dr. Stacy did, just go to YouTube. You're on YouTube already here, right? Go to Dr. Stacy, that's STACI, and Trey, TREY. Dr. Stacy and Trey. The most recent video, she just did that yesterday. It was phenomenal. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to listen to it several times because it was extraordinary. And watch that video. It is available in English and in Spanish. Okay, my friends and gems, that's it. If you're interested in learning more about the life-saving technology that I currently enjoy, that is the reason why I no longer have a traumatic brain injury. I don't have brain damage anymore. I have a phenomenal memory. All my neurological symptoms have disappeared. I'm happy and healthy and totally doing better and better than ever before. And you too can benefit like that. Get back to me or the person who referred you to this video, and we can help you get started and answer all of your questions. And when you get down to the DNA level, it repairs, restores, regenerates everything without exception, inside as well as outside of the body. Look, I don't have 50% hair loss anymore. I've grown back my hair. Thank you, God. I don't have bald spots anymore. And our friend here, Carol, also has a happy, healthy heart. She no longer has high blood pressure and AFib and all those complications either.
That's
All
right.
right.
Yeah, it works.
As always, ciao for now. Mwah. Take care, my
Bye for
friends.
now.
We'll talk to you soon, and we'll hopefully see you on a Zoom at 12/2, 12/2, or 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Actually, I'm not going to be around tomorrow at 7. I have an engagement to go to. So it's either 12 p.m. or 2 p.m.
All right.